Good morning, everybody. Jim Feist and Joe Mack. We're going to talk football. We just did a podcast on baseball, so make sure you check that one out. And then here we go. We're going to do some football. Good morning, Joe.
Hey, Jim. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Let's talk some pro football because that's the first game comes up on the card this week. In the pros, we've got the Rams at Seattle. Interesting game. The Rams open up a 1-point favorite. And now we're looking at the Seattle Seahawks, -2. Total is 49 or 50.
You know, you told me during the summer to watch out for the Seahawks. I think you're right. They're a dangerous team. Everyone thinks of them with Russell Wilson, but they've turned over that team, obviously, over the last couple of years. The defense is completely different characters except for one or two guys. And they're a tough out, as they would say. I mean, they wound up already winning a game in Pittsburgh. The other day, they went into Arizona, won that soundly. Now they've got the short week, and they've got the Rams traveling in. And you wonder sometimes with teams that are, elite teams like the Rams, do they start kind of thinking long and hard about where their season is headed? I mean, they really just got crushed by Tampa Bay the other day. I mean, Goff was back there throwing the ball a gazillion times, taking a ton of hits. And so the Rams got to get their act cleaned up in a hurry. They've got to really find out how much of the workload they can give to Todd Gurley. And then they go from here. I mean, I'm certainly not counting them out. I definitely think they're a playoff team. But this is one of the times in the season where a team, like I said, like a top 5 NFL team, has to have some thoughts about where they exactly headed. I mean, they started off the year with wins and covers against Carolina, New Orleans, and Cleveland. But let's face it, they needed the Browns to kind of self-destruct late in that game for that win. And it was life or death season opener in Carolina. So they've been in some nail-biters, and they haven't really shown a lot of separation. We're going to see what they can do against this Seahawks defense, what Goff and company can do on a short week. And we'll see where we are. I mean, Seattle is starting to look like a team that could reassert itself back in the NFL, among the NFL powers. I mean, they really only had 1 year where they did not make the playoffs, going back to 2011. Only in 2017 did they not make it. So they really, they're not the dominant team they were, but they look like they're pretty good. And as you said, they're getting the money right now. That number has switched sides, and it's Seahawk money coming in. Well,
let me throw a little bit of water, cold water on the Seahawks. And I'm a big Russell Wilson fan. I really think he's pound for pound one of the top 3 guys in the league in that position. He carries the team a lot. Their defense is okay. Beating Murray in Arizona, that's a cakewalk to me. Arizona just doesn't have it right now. They got a new head coach, etc. The first game of the year, they were life and death to beat Cincinnati. And, we're looking at Cincinnati now. They don't look that strong. And they were life and death in Pittsburgh, even with Roethlisberger going out. So, I mean, even though it's a good road win, but then they got crushed at home by the Saints. And I mean crushed. They didn't look good at all in that game. And so I'm a little concerned with maybe I was a little too high early on Seattle. I like the fact I had them big last week against Arizona, but Arizona is one of the weakest teams in the league, in my opinion. And I don't know. That's one of the problems we have in the NFL right now. We have the top tier teams and we have the bottom teams. So when you beat these bottom teams like Miami and Washington and Arizona, you got to say, how much do you put into that? Like you saw Baltimore struggle with Arizona, and then Baltimore came out last week and looked like crap against Cleveland. So, we're really kind of measuring it out right now. Now, fortunately, you and I have been doing really well. I'm 29-9 in the NFL, so I've been doing okay with that, I would say. But I have to keep my eyes open, and I can't get too hung up in my projections. Seattle they haven't covered a spread at home yet. They didn't do well against Cincinnati. They certainly didn't do well against the Saints, and in their 2 home games. And in the past, when you play Seattle in Seattle, you just don't beat them. That's not the case anymore. So I'm a little concerned with a team like the Rams, who got crushed at home and has a ton of talent. And when they give up that many points, that defense is going to come back with vengeance. So this is going to be a tough team. I don't quite understand this big move from the Rams 1 to Seattle 2. I'm a little concerned about that.
I got you. You make many, many good points, Jim. One other thing that I would add is, you know it as well as I know it, that you get this overreaction in the NFL from week to week. Now, if you were, I don't know what the numbers were. I know they do these projections for the whole season for every week game, which to me might be a little silly because you don't know with injuries and whatnot. But if I would have told you in week 5 for this Thursday night game that the Seahawks were going to be a favorite, we both would have said no way. But again, you've got that overreaction that the public does after each game. And let's face it, the Rams were a 9.5 point favorite the other day. Would never, ever in it in terms of covering the spread. Never. And you had the Seahawks, as you said, they beat an Arizona team that's in the bottom shelf of the league. It's true. So you've got people saying one team looked good, even if it was against the bottom level team. One team looked really bad, turned the ball over, had their quarterback take a beating. Their defense gave up some big plays, and all of a sudden you've got everybody is pro Seahawks. So you make all those good points, and I pick that one point that the overreaction on a week-to-week basis never really surprises me anymore because we see it all the time. And like you said, when you look at the big picture, you just pointed out the Seattle wins. You're right. Close call against Cincinnati. The Pittsburgh game, okay, outright win in Pittsburgh, but that was not your typical Steelers type of team. And then a big win against an Arizona team that's, let's face it, they've got to learn to crawl before they walk with this new coach and this new quarterback. So the Seahawks are, to me, they still can be a 10-11 win team this year. They've got to take care of business. I mean, let's face it, look at last year. They played the Rams real tough, and that was a Rams team obviously headed to the Super Bowl. The Seahawks played them early in the season, taken 7, lost 33-31 in Seattle, and played a few weeks later and lost 36-31 as a 9-point dog. So both of the games last year, the Seahawks were taking a nice margin, and both times they flipped under the number. That's not the case here. The public is demanding a little more. They want to see Seattle, cover as a small favorite right now. And again, you got to take the whole thing in consideration. The Rams, maybe they're not the Rams from last year, but they're still in the top 7, 8 teams of this league. I can assure you that.
Well, they definitely are. Switching gears here, we got interesting game here. We're talking about 2 pretty good teams, the Rams and the Seahawks, and then you go down on the card and you look at Arizona at Cincinnati. 0-3-1. Arizona was way down to the Lions and came back and tied that game, and that ended up in a tie in overtime. And in Cincinnati, who's 0-4 and got crushed by Pittsburgh last night. I mean, what do you? Then here you're sitting at Cincinnati 3.5 in the game, and I have no idea. I'm looking at that game and I have no idea what to do with that game because you got 2 bottom feeders with 2 coaches that are brand new to the league, and you got an older quarterback with Cincinnati with a lot of experience but not very good, and Arizona with a young kid, the Heisman kid, and all the big draft choice and all that stuff that hasn't really shown that much. He can throw the ball. I'm impressed with that, and he can run, but he is rather small for the NFL. And how do you even play that game? Unless, there's different angles. You could look at team totals, you could overall totals, etc. But I like to focus. You go down to the next game, which is very interesting also. You got Jacksonville against Carolina. Carolina lost the first game against the Rams. They were at home, but they had Cam Newton at the quarterback, and Cam Newton, in my opinion, career is done. He doesn't have the legs anymore, and he's never been an accurate passer. He can hit the bomb because he can hit 3 throws. He's a big, strong guy. He is a wonderful athlete, but the legs is what made him. He was never a great short passer. He couldn't control the ball that way. He had to throw bombs, but now he can't do any of that because of those, he doesn't have the legs anymore. A lot of injuries. He took a lot of hits running the ball like that. Now you've got Carolina with the new guy, Kyle Allen, and they look better with him than they have with Cam for the last 2 years. And now you've got Jacksonville, who paid the big money to Foles, who got hurt in the first game, and they got Gardner Minshew, who looks pretty damn good. But he's a young kid. He's fresh out of college, lower draft choice or higher draft choices. But I don't know, lower or higher. He was down the list. But this is the kind of thing. We have a transition going on in the NFL. We've got some teams that are saying, hey, remember the days when we used to run the ball, control the ball, keep the quarterback standing up a little bit more? Let's put a little bit more effort on energy into the offensive line being strong enough to block for the run and protect the quarterback. Remember those days? And you don't get your Andrew Luck's killed where he has to retire 5 years ahead of time because he's been banged up too much. The league is starting to wise up slowly, because there's still some coaches out there that don't know what the hell they're doing, and they're getting their players killed. What they did in Washington last week, throwing that kid Haskins in there without any preparation, he was not ready. I don't know who made that decision. It was the dumbest thing. You could ruin the kid doing stuff like that. Just because they're head coaches and offensive coordinators and owners, they make bad decisions. They may have billions of dollars, but they make bad decisions when it comes to sports. So I'm going off on a rant here. I'm sorry about that, but
no, it's a great rant. I'll pick up on one or two of your points with Cam Newton. Cam Newton took so many hits as a running quarterback. I don't want to say running quarterback. He threw the ball obviously plenty in his career, but he took so many hard, vicious hits that it all caught up with him. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's almost like a boxer who probably thought he could box for 15 years, and 8 years through realized, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I don't have the legs, I don't have the strength, and I've taken a veritable beating over the years. So Cam Newton's career certainly looks like if it's not over, it's close to being over. And every time this kid Kyle Allen gets on the field, he makes Carolina look like a nice, crisp offense. Now, listen, it helps to get the ball to Christian McCaffrey 25 times a game. The guy's amazing. I mean, I guess for these fantasy people, he must be in the top 3 players in the league. I mean, every week you look at his stats, and he's got, 100 yards rushing and 90 yards receiving, and he makes some great catches, as we saw the other day. But as far as that team goes, it looks like a different team with Allen. It has a feel to it that, I don't think it's any coincidence. Their defense is buffed up a little bit, too, the last couple of weeks, and they're looking like they could be a playoff contender. Now, I always am a little leery of teams that, if they're not a Super Bowl-type team like a Patriot team, they come off back-to-back road wins, upset wins, and now you're asking them to lay points at home against the Jacksonville team that's got a little magic to them with Minshew right now. I mean, I thought the media was overdoing it with this guy after the first couple of weeks. And I loved him in college last year. I said all along he should have been in the top 3 of the Heisman voting last year. But he comes into this league, and he's kind of a tiny guy. But, boy, the way he avoided pressure the other day in the Denver game was amazing. I mean, the announcers are right. At one point, he changed direction 5 times on one play and then found a wide open tight end for a touchdown, in a red zone scramble. So he's exciting. And, to me, I look at something like that and I say, on one hand, you're asking Carolina to cover a number at home, coming off back-to-back road wins. On the other hand, you're asking a Jacksonville team that doesn't look like they're letting the Jalen Ramsey nonsense distract them at all. Again, they've got a little magic going, just went into Mile High. Again, the Broncos seem to lose these close games every week now. But, the Jags look like they could be a little trending up right now. The other thing you talk about with the quarterbacks, Jim, I counted it up. Maybe I counted wrong. But, we've got 32 teams in this league, and we've got 11 teams that have either changed quarterbacks already, or if you include the Colts with Luck retiring and Brissett taking over, I'm including that. But I think we've got 11 teams that have changed quarterbacks at some point this season due to injury or ineffectiveness. And think about it. We're 1 month into this season, right? The coaches always talk. They cut it down in segments, 4 weeks at a time. We're at the quarter pole, and we've had 1/3 of the NFL teams change their quarterbacks, either what looks like permanently or at least to get a new look. That's amazing. That really is, like I said, we've had injuries. We've had Foles get injured. The Jet situation, with Donald and his mono. Okay, but you've got a lot of coaches out there, a lot of coaches are searching for who's the right guy. Some of them have been successful, like we said with Carolina, what the Redskins did the other day. Let's face it, I'm sure that came from up high. I'm sure that Daniel Snyder and his people told Gruden before the game, if Case Keenum's not moving his team, I want to see Haskins in the game. The kid was certainly not ready. Listen, he was raw coming into this league. He only really played 1 year at Ohio State, and all he did is sat in the shotgun and just fried it out to guys who were all first and second round draft picks. So, I'm not knocking Haskins. I think he's going to have a decent career. I think he's got a good arm. I think he's a bright kid. But, again, he sat in the shotgun at Ohio State for a year and just picked and choose who he wanted to throw to. And now the other day, that was a different story, and he threw as many passes to the Giants as he did to his own guys. But you've got some coaches that have kind of panicked in times this year, and you've had some coaches that they've had to make that call when a guy gets injured or whatever. They've got to just, like they say, next man up. You had it with the Giants and Eli Manning. They didn't think they were going to go anywhere. Boom, they sat Eli and they popped in Daniel Jones, and it's worked for them so far. So it's worked for some teams, not for the others. I just thought the amazing thing was basically 1/3 of this league has already changed out of their quarterback, who was number one on their depth chart to start the year. They've got somebody else in that QB1 spot right now.
Absolutely. And you're going to have, you hate to say it, there's going to be more changes. Some of these other guys are going to get hurt too. And, this is a tough game, and these guys get hit. We're only 4 weeks in. There's some other changes. Now, you may get Breeze back, and you may get Darnold back. So that would go back to the starters again. But take a look at, this Atlanta-Houston matchup this week. You have, in my opinion, both of these teams are poorly coached. They both have a lot of talent, and they're just not showing up. Now, Dan Quinn is a defensive guy, and their defense, they're missing assignments. They got wide open. They don't know what they're doing on defense. If you notice in the beginning of their games, they're getting outscored. They're down 21-0 almost every game. And then what you got is a lot of garbage time stats coming in from their offense, because they can't play football like they wanted to. This is a poor league. Somehow Quinn has lost this team. They're not responding. They need to change the coach. I'm not saying he's a bad guy or he's a bad football mind, but he's not head coach material at this point. And if I remember right, the last time he was really good was when he had Kyle Shanahan as the offensive coordinator. That has not really repeated itself since Kyle left for San Francisco. And on the other side, you got Houston. Watson is an amazingly smart, talented young man. They got a lot of talent on that team. The kid is getting killed. Now, some of it's his own fault. He holds the ball too long. But they haven't done a good job shoring this team up. Yeah, they made some moves. They got the guy out of Miami, and that helped the left tackle situation, which is big. But that is a much better football team than what their record shows and what their performance is. You look at that game, and okay, you want to bet on the coach? What coach do you want to bet on? It's like, this is what the league has come down to. We have the haves and we have the have-nots. If you just take the best coaches every day, you might just bet on the best coaches. You might be better off.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I heard a comment somebody said on TV over the weekend about the Falcons. They said that the loss to the Patriots in the Super Bowl at the end of the 2016 season, quote, stole the soul out of the Falcons. And when you think about it, okay, they made the playoffs the next year. And if folks remember, right, they came back, they beat the Rams the next year in the playoffs, lost it to Philly. Really, if Ryan had thrown a little bit better ball to Julio Jones, they could have gone back to the NFC Championship game the year after Super Bowl. But ever since then, they haven't been the same team. And as far as what you say in the defense, think about this, Jim. They drafted 2 offensive linemen with their first 2 picks in the draft this year. Now, that made sense to me because their offensive line had been beaten and battered down and had a retirement and whatnot. Now, their offensive line is still not great, and they didn't really address the defense because I think Quinn and company thought, hey, we've got the 11 guys plus depth to make it. And you're right, they've been lost this year. I mean, every week in the first quarter, they're getting pushed all over the field. I mean, we know who they have on there. I mean, they've got some speed on that defense. They've got some decent players. All right, they lost Neal to the safety to I think it was the Achilles a couple of weeks ago. But in other words, they told you and they told their fans before the start of the season, listen, we're happy with our defense. We're going to be fine. Well, they're not fine. They're not good. And I mean, now they were a 5-point underdog to a Houston team, like you said, that's a little skittish themselves. I mean, I like Watson, too, as a quarterback, but, boy, he dances around in the pocket sometimes waiting for a receiver to get open. One of these days he's going to step to the left when he should have stepped to the right. Somebody's going to take his head off because he's taking some monster hits. And like you just said before, we talked about the 11 quarterback changes already, and you said there'll be more. Oh, there's going to be more. I mean, Watson is going to be one of them, I hate to say, if he doesn't get a little bit better protection and if he doesn't shift around a little bit better in that pocket, he's going to get slammed. And so is Matt Ryan. I mean, every week I tune in right between the red zone and watching whatever games I'm watching, and Matt Ryan is constantly landing on his back, taking some hellacious hits. So anyway, these two teams, I agree with you. The coaching, not good. I've never been a big Bill O'Brien fan. I don't put him at the bottom of the barrel, but, I'd probably pick 20 NFL coaches, head coaches right now before I picked him. And they've got, you say about both teams, they both have more talent than what they're showing, obviously. And really, when you think about it, this Falcon team, they've got a receiving core and Matt Ryan and a defense that's got a lot of quicks but hasn't shown a lot of smarts or whatever lately. But, I mean, you would think the Falcons' window for, being a 10-11 win team, a playoff team every year, is still open, but maybe not. I mean, last year they were a losing team, never could get their act together, bombed out down the stretch. I'm looking here at my book. The Falcons last year only covered 2 of their last 9 games of last season.
Oh, wow. And
they're a disaster. And Quinn might be on the chopping block. If they lose a couple more games, they don't have their bye till November 3rd, Jim. But I mean, their schedule is not easy. They're at Arizona next week after the Houston game, and then they're home. But they're home to the Rams in Seattle. If they lose 3 out of these next 4 games, I don't know if Quinn's going to survive.
Well, yeah, I think the odds are either Quinn or Jay Gruden are going to go, first, and I think it's head to head right now. When you look at the NFC South, I thought the Saints would win it, but I mean I didn't anticipate Breeze getting hurt. But they still have won 2 games that he hasn't started, so they're still looking good. Carolina is starting to look good. They probably should have won the first game against the Rams if they'd have had a better quarterback performance in that game. And now Tampa Bay is coming up under Arians. And I know they blew the game against the Giants, but under Arians, they have looked a lot better than what we've seen in the past. So they're a little bit more dangerous. So right now, I'm going to say Atlanta is at the bottom of that stack of 4 teams, and it's going to be between the other 3 teams who takes it down. And again, Joe, tell us what's going on at Jim Hurley this week.
Well, we're talking about the NFL a lot. We're going to have a lot of big NFL plays this weekend. I'm looking at the card and have been looking ever since the lines got posted Sunday night. I like a few pieces out there, so we're definitely going to have our winners come. We start with Thursday night's game, like you said, Rams Seahawks. And don't forget, folks, just give us a call at the toll-free number 1-800-323-4453. Again, toll-free 1-800-323-4453. Otherwise, you can get them online at jimhurley.com. That's jimhurley.com. Lots of winners, like we said. NFL and college game days, Saturday and Sundays. Give us a call after 10 a.m. Eastern Time for the weeknight games, such as Rams Seahawks. We'll have siding totals. Give us a call after 12 noon Eastern Time. We're ready, willing, and able to be winning every week. We've had a solid start this year. Not the glitzy start we want, but a good solid start. We're going to continue on this week. And you're talking about the pros. We're definitely going to be lighting it up with a few big games in the NFL in week number 5.
Well, thank you, Joe. We'll talk again later in the week, and have a great day and enjoy the baseball today.
You too, Jim. Enjoy the week. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Yeah, and my record in the NFL right now is kind of crazy. 29 winners and 9 losers. It's been a hell of a streak, and colleges started off really slow this year, which usually for me that's the way it is. But out of the last 15 college plays, we've won 10. So that's a nice 2-to-1 ratio the last few weeks in college. So go to jimfeist.com for our college and pro football plays. jimfeist.com. And thank you for listening in. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll talk again soon.